When you have a story like this that's been out for so long, you have these moments where you start to kind of reminisce and think about the series in general. And I was sitting down just thinking about a lot of my favorite scenes, moments in Tower of God. And because of the way that my mind works, I obviously had to rank them. But I really was racking my brain trying to figure out what do I believe is single-handedly the greatest scene, the best moment in Tower of God. This is just my opinion. And I came up with an answer. It's honestly a pretty obvious one. Pause the video here and I want you to guess what I'm going to say, or just tell me what you think is single-handedly the best, greatest moment or scene in Tower of God. But I'm going to play it for you right here. Back to season 1, A Simpler Time. This push to me is absolutely the most iconic, most important, and best scene in Tower of God, and we're going to talk about it. Y'all talking time to tick away. You ain't clocking hours on the day. All that watch is stopping what you claim. Dollar crosses real got me name. Hoping God just get me out this game. While I agree that this is a very safe answer, I honestly think it's the most obvious one. And the reason that I have to pick this scene, the push, is because of how it made us feel as readers. Because we were probably just as confused as Bam was during the last examination when Rachel did that. I will be honest, I always got a bad vibe from Rachel. I couldn't really put my finger on why, but when it happened, there was definitely a part of me that wasn't 100% like shocked, but I was still in disbelief. To the point that I spent days upon days, weeks and months after the fact, real life angry at Rachel. I'm in class, I'm at work, I'm doing whatever, and I'm like, why did she do it? You heartless bitch! Right? So like, I'm actually, it made me really upset. And you've seen some of the people who do not like Rachel. It permeates to this day. Have you seen some of those reactions? That's what the anime scene, even though I don't like the anime, this scene means a lot. And within the context of the story and not just how it makes you feel as a reader or viewer, it means so much when you think about what she taught Bam, telling him not to betray, all the lessons that she imparted onto him in that cave, and things about even like women and having to treat them a certain type of way. And she goes against all those teachings in that moment for a purely selfish desire. And she pushes him out the little safe zone where the bull was, to his demise, seemingly at the very least, right? And then using the hindsight that we have, so in retrospect, I understand that now we have added knowledge so we can go back and somewhat recontextualize some scenes. Seeing how she acts later in the various engagements that they have really kind of highlights her character and who she truly was the whole time. And if Bam gets a second push off the Hell Train, that made me sick. I'm not gonna lie to you. I couldn't believe he did that. And then in the floor of death, you start to finally see Bam really accept the situation, but you always know because of this is in a lot of ways. I don't like saying this, but his mother. In the sense, I know he calls her an angel, but it's just like everything that I knew before coming into this tower, everything that I've learned, everything that was instilled into me, it came from you. And you have gone back on each and every one of those things and have become my enemy. You are even hurting the people who I care about, who care about me. She blew up Aguero's heart. And I absolutely cannot agree with the way that he handled that. But again, that just goes to show to you how much, how complicated it really is to him because Rachel does mean a lot to him, regardless of how she has acted since pushing him and even how she's acted towards his friends. Now, I don't agree with how he's taking it, but I understand that these internal turmoils, it just takes a lot more to kind of get past them. So I really don't think I have to go into much more detail. I think we all as Tower of God fans understand how iconic this moment is. This betrayal is top one betrayals ever. Like when I think about the most iconic, important scene in Tower of God, this is the moment that pops into my head immediately. We're building up this story about going up this tower for a wish. Bam is starting to kind of show a little bit of potential, latent talent. We're starting to finally figure out, okay,
He's ready to help her go up to the tower to achieve her dreams. He's willing to take you there, carry you there. You're supposed to be in a wheelchair. You stand up and then you push this man, which completely changes the trajectory of his entire life and climbing this tower. I don't have to go into more detail than that, but share with me, what is the most iconic, important, and/or best scene and moment in Tower of God to you? If you disagree with me, let me know. Let me know why. But yeah, it's the push, man. It's the push. I'm not a meathead because I don't need action and combat to enjoy a narrative. Whether I'm playing, watching, or reading something, I don't need it. I like action, I like combat. Combat's great, but I don't require it to enjoy myself. However, if you are going to implement this stuff into your narrative, I expect you to do it competently. So if you have an energy or magic system a la Shinsu, I want it to have internal consistency and I want it to progress in a way that makes sense as the characters grow throughout the story. I have an issue with how some of you address certain combat related things in Tower of God and try to dismiss power scaling. This is a series where most conflict is solved by fighting each other. The stronger person is right. Might makes right. So for you to try to dismiss it is very disingenuous and you're absolutely ignoring a huge part of the series. Y'all try to pass it off occasionally as, oh, I like lore and I like, world building. And if you know anything about storytelling, you know that if your series has a magic system and combat in it, it ties into character, it ties into lore, and into world building. But we're not here for that today. What I'm going to talk to you about is why this clash with Urek and Baam is single handedly the worst scene in Tower of God.
Boy. They so that I'm making noise. It don't matter though. Young nigga from Canada, brought from that bullshit and go like a matador.
And before one of you bozos start crying at me, this is obviously just my opinion. This is subjective, right? You don't have to agree with me. I'm just here to make the case. I think power scaling is very important, and in this series, I think it's a little wonky. You can go check out my videos on power scaling and Tower of God to get my opinion on it. I don't think it's perfect, I don't think it's the worst, but there's some issues here. And when I think about how powerful Urek truly is, and some of the characters that we've seen in terms of durability, unable to be hurt and scratched easily like Caliban, and Bam's massive growth rate, especially after the hidden floor, I'm actually disgusted by this scene. If Urek and Bam clashed now, literally today, this is the outcome I would expect. Still, not even Bam doing anything crazy, just a mere scratch. For him to do that as an E rank regular when he did it, I think is completely nonsensical in retrospect, in hindsight, when you look back. Now, I want to make it clear that I understand the implications of this moment and seeing it, what it's supposed to mean. I just don't think it hits when you kind of see the progression Bam makes. This is supposed to showcase Bam's potential and his ceiling. This isn't a regular Urek, number 4 in the tower, one of the strongest beings, just like Bam. This is the first time you've seen Bam actually pretty much interact with somebody who can ignore the rules of the tower just the way he can. But Bam is way too weak here to actually wound Urek as an E rank regular. It's actually disgusting, especially when you start to see all the things and accomplishment and feats that Bam starts to do later on. Then you come back to the floor of death and you see what Hell Joe and the Red Thressa can do, and you're like, the more I progress through the story, the more I see irregulars and Bam do this and that. The more I look back at this moment and I scratch my head like SIU, I want to be clear that I understand this is like a hey potential. A little nick on his cheek shows that one day Bam will be able to stand on the same tier and the same platform as people just as powerful as you, as an irregular. But I don't think it hits in hindsight. I actually didn't really have a problem with that scene in the moment. It's just the further I go, the further I look back and go, huh? This is not very good. I think there was probably a better way to do this. I don't have the answer of how, but I think there was a better way to do it. I would have wished or liked to have this clash happen maybe a little bit later. At the very least, post Nada Jihad, where I would have been a lot more accepting of it. I don't know how many of you agree with me. I understand how much people love this moment, so I could be actually like, um, I guess, upsetting a couple of you. But to me, this is even the best part of this arc, all things considered. But that being said, what do you guys believe and think is the worst scene moment in Tower of God? Whether you believe it's an iconic moment or not. Because I actually heard somebody tell me something that's very interesting, and I want to know your opinion on it. It doesn't really relate to this video, but I was told the push. Rachel's push was the worst scene in Tower of God. And I don't think this person was being emotional. But anywho, that clash wasn't it, man. Shout out to my elite supporters, the Patreon gang, CBL, the Priest of Fire, but especially the Fifth Zen God. Shout out to my tier 3 patrons, Chris, Cayenne, Sonny Kathapali, Miles, Simi, Shoddy to your body, Scobe, Tris, Revenant, Chromizone, and Big Abdel. Your support is greatly appreciated.